Hulk Hogan's death shocked the entire world, but now new information has come to light, suggesting the story isn't as simple as everyone first thought. Recent discoveries by the FBI have raised serious questions about what truly happened during his final moments, leaving fans and investigators searching for the real truth behind his mysterious end.
Discovered at that time, Terry Bollea, also known as Hulk Hogan, was experiencing a serious medical-related issue.
Hogan himself had once warned people about doctors filling him with pain medications, hinting that the constant use of those drugs could one day cause serious trouble.
I was on the pain pills. I did have doctors just writing prescriptions after prescriptions, and all of a sudden it becomes this vicious cycle as they were giving me the pain meds.
Was this really a natural death? The new evidence suggests otherwise. Let's break it down. The morning of July 24th began like any other day in Clearwater, Florida. The sun rose over the Gulf Coast, spreading golden light across the calm neighborhood where the wrestling legend lived. But everything changed around 9:51 a.m., when emergency responders received a call that would turn that quiet morning into a scene of shock and tragedy.
No signs of foul play or suspicious activity related to this call for service at this time. Our personnel is providing the family with the necessary resources. I'm strongly encouraging everyone to keep the family in their thoughts and respect their privacy during this difficult time.
The official report from the Clearwater Police Department described it as a sudden medical emergency that unfolded with heartbreaking speed. Paramedics reached the scene within minutes and immediately began life-saving efforts that went on for nearly half an hour. They performed chest compressions and other emergency procedures before deciding to rush him to Morton Plant Hospital. Despite their best efforts to save the man who had once seemed unstoppable in the wrestling ring, Terry Bollea was pronounced dead at 11:17 a.m., marking the end of a life that felt larger than any story ever told.
Before 10 a.m. today, Clearwater Fire and Rescue along with the Clearwater Police Department responded to a house in the 1000 block of El Dorado Avenue for a medical-related call. It was discovered at that time Terry Bollea, also known as Hulk Hogan, was experiencing a serious medical-related issue. Personnel provided medical treatment at that time and transported Mr. Bollea to Morton Plant Hospital, where he died at 11:17 a.m.
In the hours following Hogan's death, an overwhelming wave of grief and tributes poured in from every corner of the entertainment world. The company that had turned him into a global icon released an official statement mourning the loss of one of their greatest champions, saying, "WWE is saddened to learn that WWE Hall of Famer Hulk Hogan has passed away. One of pop culture's most recognizable figures, Hogan helped WWE reach global fame in the 1980s. But the most emotional tribute came from Vince McMahon himself, the man who had transformed Hogan from a local wrestling name into an international legend. His words summed it up simply: "The world lost a treasure today. Hulk Hogan was the greatest WWE superstar of all time."
Reaction to the news of his death.
Oh man, it's a complicated feeling. Instantly just sadness, obviously off top. Really heartbreaking. I think for a long time, many of us had concerns about his health. Just in the last couple of weeks, there was some conversation, some rumors spread that his health was not good. But I'm floored. 71 years old. In professional wrestling, in the era that he is from, knowing what he put his body through, it is a very long life to live. He put a lot of miles on that body, worked at a time in which you were working 300 days a year.
The wrestling community reacted instantly and with deep emotion. Legends who had shared the ring with Hogan over his incredible career found it hard to put their sorrow into words. The pain of the moment was perhaps best shown by Ric Flair, Hogan's longtime friend and sometimes rival, who broke down in tears during a live television interview while speaking about the bond they had shared.
Always wanted to paint us as enemies, but we were actually very, very close friends. And we kept it up with each other on a regular basis. So I just talked to Jimmy Hart yesterday, and he was fine. To have this happen is just horrible.
The sudden news of Hogan's death sent shockwaves not only through the wrestling world, but across popular culture as a whole. This was a man who had gone far beyond the boundaries of wrestling, becoming a symbol of American strength, determination, and never giving up. He had inspired millions of kids to train hard, say their prayers, and eat their vitamins. His passing was so impactful that even political figures, including President Donald Trump, who had shared a decades-long friendship with him publicly, expressed their sorrow. But as the initial shock faded and tributes continued to pour in from around the world, questions began to surface about what had really led to this heartbreaking end. In the months before his death, Hogan had been struggling with serious health problems caused by the brutal physical toll of 4 decades in the ring. The man who once seemed unbreakable, who could lift 500-pound giants and slam them to the mat night after night, had been quietly living with a body that was breaking down. Over the past 10 years alone, he had gone through more than 25 surgeries, including multiple operations on his back, knees, hips, and shoulders. Hogan himself had admitted in interviews that he barely had any original body parts left, and often spoke honestly about the chronic pain that had become his constant companion.
Surgeries in the last 10 years.
Oh my God.
As news of Hogan's death spread across social media and major news outlets worldwide, it quickly became clear that the truth behind his final days was far more complicated than the early reports suggested. Behind the headlines were whispers of medical struggles, family tensions, and private battles that had been hidden from the public eye. The months leading up to his death painted a picture of a man fighting on several fronts physically, emotionally, and personally. While fans only caught glimpses of these struggles, the full reality of his declining health and strained family relationships would only come to light after his passing. In May 2025, Hogan underwent a major neck surgery, the latest in a long list of procedures meant to repair the damage left by decades in the ring. This wasn't just another routine operation, it was a serious 4-level anterior cervical discectomy and fusion, a complex spinal procedure that required months of recovery. The surgery was a direct result of years of brutal punishment his body had endured. The repeated impacts, the powerful leg drops that became his signature move, and the countless matches against much heavier opponents had left his spine and neck in critical condition.
Not original here.
The knees are fake, the hips are fake, the back's full of metal.
While Hogan was still recovering from his major surgery, troubling rumors began to spread suggesting that his condition was much worse than his family had admitted publicly. Radio host Bubba the Love Sponge, once a close friend of Hogan before their friendship collapsed over the infamous sex tape scandal, started circulating claims in June 2025 that Hogan was in critical shape, saying he was paralyzed, in a coma, or even near death following complications from surgery. The rumors grew so intense that Hogan's representatives and his wife, Sky Daly, were forced to respond. Sky, whom Hogan had married in 2023, took to social media to shut down what she called cruel and false stories. She reassured fans that although Hogan was still healing from surgery, his heart was strong and there was no need for such extreme concern. Her statement seemed to calm things down for a while, but behind the scenes, Hogan's condition was more serious than anyone had revealed. Sources close to the family later shared that he had been struggling with shortness of breath and what looked like a weakening heart in the weeks before his passing. The painful irony was that while Bubba's rumors were dismissed as attention-seeking gossip, they were actually closer to the truth than most people realized. The friendship between Hogan and Bubba had already been destroyed years earlier by the 2007 sex tape scandal, when Bubba had secretly filmed Hogan with his own wife, a betrayal that Hogan never fully forgave.
Part of my face is full of metal. I didn't get the memo about the fake wrestling.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, I missed that.
That scandal led to one of the biggest legal battles of Hogan's entire life, ending with a massive $140 million judgment against Gawker Media after they published clips from the private tape. The case, which was secretly funded in part by tech billionaire Peter Thiel, eventually forced Gawker into bankruptcy and was later settled for $31 million. But while Hogan won in court, the personal damage was devastating. The leaked audio from the tape captured him using racial slurs and making deeply offensive remarks, which resulted in his temporary removal from WWE and shattered many of his long-standing professional relationships.
Out of everything that I've been through, this one hit me probably the hardest, and that's a heck of a thing to say, because I've been through a lot of crazy.
The family situation during Hogan's final months was just as complicated and heartbreaking as his health struggles. His relationship with his daughter Brooke had been tense for years, ever since his difficult divorce from her mother, Linda, back in 2009. The family's reality show, Hogan Knows Best, had once portrayed them as happy and united. But behind the cameras, things were far more fractured and painful than anyone realized.
I was to the point where I wanted to kill myself. I sat in my bathroom by myself when my ex-wife was gone and the kids were gone, and I was completely broken and destroyed.
In January 2025, Brooke became a mother to twins, making Hogan a grandfather for the first time. Yet the happiness of this moment was overshadowed by the lingering distance between father and daughter. Their strained relationship traced back to the turmoil of Hogan's divorce from Linda and the many public scandals that had surrounded the family over the years. Hogan's son, Nick, had also faced his own troubles, most notably the 2007 car accident that left his passenger permanently brain damaged and led to Nick serving jail time. These events had only deepened the family's emotional wounds. Despite his health struggles, Hogan tried to stay active and visible, perhaps to hold on to the larger-than-life image that had defined him for decades. In 2024, he launched Real American Beer, a patriotic-themed brand he proudly promoted, and even made a headline-grabbing appearance at the Republican National Convention, where he tore off his shirt to reveal a Trump campaign t-shirt in classic Hulk Hogan fashion.
Should have been the one to throw me out like the trash, but instead she showed me more love than anybody.
What did Brooke say to you?
Well, could we stop for a second? All right.
Hogan's final wrestling-related appearance took place on January 6th, 2025, during WWE Raw's debut on Netflix. The moment was far from the triumphant return he might have hoped for, as the crowd greeted him with boos while he tried to promote his new beer brand. It was a harsh reminder of how much his public image had suffered in recent years due to the many controversies that had surrounded him. Despite his efforts to stay in the public eye and his family's continued denials about his health, those closest to Hogan knew the truth. His condition was worsening quickly. Decades of physical punishment, countless surgeries, and the natural effects of aging had taken a toll that even the man once seen as indestructible could no longer fight off. The wrestling world had seen many of its icons struggle with their health in later years, often as a result of the extreme wear and tear of their careers, but Hogan's situation felt especially tragic because it played out so publicly and was intertwined with the personal and professional scandals that had defined his later life. As July 2025 went on, the rumors that had been dismissed just weeks earlier began to sound more and more real. The man who had once inspired millions of kids to train hard, say their prayers, and eat their vitamins was now in the toughest battle of his life, a fight that, unlike his many scripted victories in the ring, would not have a happy ending. The legacy of Hulk Hogan is one of triumph, controversy, and redemption, a story that ended on July the 24th, 2025, but had been shaping American pop culture for decades. His death marked not just the loss of a wrestling icon, but the closing of an era that millions had grown up with. As news of his cardiac arrest spread around the world, the reactions revealed just how complicated his legacy had become. This wasn't the simple mourning of a beloved star, it was a reflection on a man who had inspired millions while also disappointing many. The timing of his death carried a bitter irony that didn't go unnoticed. July 24th, 2025, fell exactly 10 years to the day since the racist comments from his 2007 sex tape had been leaked, the scandal that led to his temporary ban from WWE. The coincidence of that anniversary with his death felt symbolic of the contradictions that defined his later life. On social media, especially on X, formerly Twitter, reactions were sharply divided. Some shared heartfelt tributes, remembering him as a childhood hero and cultural icon, while others openly celebrated his passing, pointing to his history of offensive remarks as the reason for their lack of sympathy. Even within the wrestling world, the response was mixed. Many of his peers paid their respects and shared warm memories of their time with him, yet there was an undeniable sense of conflicted emotion. Ric Flair's tearful breakdown during his TMZ interview perfectly captured that complex truth grief for the friend he had lost, but also recognition of the flawed man behind the legend.
What happened last week when they took a shot at my hero? And they tried to kill the next president of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
But perhaps the most powerful reactions came from those who had grown up idolizing Hulk Hogan, only to later feel let down by his actions. ESPN analyst Pete Rosenberg summed up this feeling perfectly, saying that Hogan's final years had been difficult for many fans who once saw him as their hero, and that his death felt especially sad because he never truly made the amends people had hoped for.
We had magic. I mean, it wasn't like me and Steamboat, but we just had a chemistry that was, I felt like equal to me and Steamboat, but in a different way. And he was so over. I mean, when I went there in the 90s, I had never seen anything like it in my life. The music started and he came down the hallway.
The controversy surrounding Hogan's legacy went far beyond the racist comments that resurfaced in 2015. Throughout his career, he had often been accused of using his backstage influence to protect his own status, sometimes at the expense of other wrestlers' careers. For years, stories circulated about his involvement in blocking wrestler unionization efforts in the 1980s, with claims that he had informed Vince McMahon about Jesse Ventura's attempts to organize wrestlers for collective bargaining. That move, if true, may have cost countless wrestlers the chance at fair pay, health benefits, and job security. His family life, once celebrated on Hogan Knows Best, had also been filled with scandal and dysfunction. The 2007 car accident involving his son Nick, which left a passenger permanently brain damaged, revealed troubling sides of the family's behavior, especially after recordings of Hogan making more racist remarks from jail calls became public. His bitter divorce from Linda brought even more controversy, with accusations of infidelity, including rumors of an affair with his daughter, Brooks' best friend, further damaging his image as a devoted family man. Yet despite all the controversy, Hogan's influence on professional wrestling and pop culture was impossible to deny. He was the driving force behind wrestling's explosion into mainstream entertainment in the 1980s, turning Hulkamania into a cultural movement and transforming what had once been a regional attraction into a global phenomenon.
One of the things, honestly, that I'm saddest about at this moment is that Hulk never really made the amends that people wanted. He really never took the opportunity to, I think, apologize to fans in a way that would have been super meaningful, and I think that did hurt a lot of people.
Hogan's legendary match against Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3 in 1987 remains one of the most iconic moments in sports entertainment history. With more than 90,000 fans packed into the arena and millions watching from home, the sight of Hogan lifting and body slamming the 520-pound Andre became far more than just a wrestling move. It was a cultural milestone. Despite tearing both of his biceps during the effort, that single act came to symbolize the heart, determination, and larger-than-life spirit that defined an entire generation's childhood.
But the bottom line is, in spite of the shortcomings that we've seen of the man Terry Bollea over recent years, perhaps, there is no denying he is the most important professional wrestler who ever lived, culturally. He is the Babe Ruth of professional wrestling. And if Hulkamania doesn't start there in the mid-'80s, I doubt that someone like me is able to make a living in professional wrestling. He completely changed the sport.
The financial empire Hulk Hogan built around his larger-than-life persona was as remarkable as his wrestling career itself. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at around $25 million a number, that had risen and fallen dramatically over the years due to divorces, lawsuits, and risky business ventures. His massive victory in the Gawker lawsuit had given him a major financial boost, even as it drew fresh attention to the personal controversies that followed him in his later life. Over the years, Hogan had tried his hand at numerous businesses, from restaurants and energy drinks to his final project, Real American Beer, proving he understood that his brand extended far beyond the wrestling ring. Even in his final months, he stayed active, promoting his beer line and discussing new wrestling ventures, showing that he was never content to simply fade from the spotlight. The political side of Hogan's later years added yet another layer to his already complex legacy. His open support for Donald Trump, especially his headline-grabbing appearance at the 2024 Republican National Convention, divided public opinion even further. To his fans, it was a display of genuine patriotism, but to his critics, it felt like an extension of the same controversial attitudes that had long surrounded him. As the wrestling world and the wider public reflected on his life, many saw Hogan's story as one of greatness mixed with missed chances, a man who had changed the face of wrestling forever, but had struggled to truly redeem himself. The fact that his death fell exactly 10 years after the scandal that exposed his racist remarks seemed to serve as a painful reminder that, despite all his success and second chances, he never completely escaped the shadows of his own controversies.
So this moment etched wrestling and the WWF/WWE in history, that we were not going anywhere. This was a huge gamble. We didn't know if we could pull it off. 94,000 people.
I do not understand how you can lift a 700-pound guy in the air.
With a lot of help from him. It was a situation, if you watch the tape, when I went to go underneath Andre, when Andre was coming, his arm went around my neck.
Right.
Well, actually this way, went around my neck.
Oh, he helped you?
And he pushed up on my thigh.
In the end, Hulk Hogan's death marked the close of one of the most complex and controversial celebrity stories of the modern era. He was both a groundbreaking entertainer who forever changed the world of professional wrestling, and a deeply flawed man whose personal mistakes often overshadowed his greatest triumphs. His legacy remains that of wrestling's most influential figure, a superstar who turned the sport into a global phenomenon, even as his own actions caused many fans to turn away. The new revelations about his final days, the depth of his health, struggles, and the divide between his public image and private reality all come together to reveal a man who achieved nearly everything he ever dreamed of professionally, but lost much of what truly mattered on a personal level. In death, just as in life, Hulk Hogan stands as a symbol of contradiction, both celebrated and criticized, admired and condemned, ensuring that his story will continue to be discussed long after the final bell has sounded.